Hello, everyone. Welcome to YNS Live with NFL Thread and our new series, Pivot. You guys, you know I say this all the time, but I am so excited for this for so many reasons. First, because Cynthia and I are so excited to have this new series, Pivot, where we really can dive in and speak to players that have left the league and what it is like. And what I am so excited about is that we're going to get the perspective from Cynthia when her husband left the league versus her son. So welcome, Cynthia and Michael. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that, and again, anyone that has kind of followed our show and followed us, Cynthia and I, we have a long history and we share it a lot in the beginning, but we probably haven't talked about it in a long time, right, Cynthia?
Probably, yep.
And so I actually babysat Michael when he was how old? Because I know, Cynthia, we were trying to figure this out.
First grade through third grade, maybe even a little longer.
Right. Which is just right. And which is so wild to now be able to have him on stage talking with us, because I've obviously followed Michael's journey because of, when anyone that is, in the audience that knows when you babysit, you have a connection with the family, and it's always like a long time connection. And, not only with the Zordiches, but Cynthia's sister, the Toscani. So we have followed this forever. So I'm like so excited just to dive in and really just talk about it. So Michael, just welcome. And Cynthia, do you want to add anything in the beginning here?
Well, yes, we have to mention Mrs. Williams, Michael's kindergarten teacher, all the kids' kindergarten teacher, and your mom.
Yes.
Wasn't she the best, Michael?
She was. She really was.
We loved her.
And what's funny is that she also, because she was a kindergarten teacher in town, and she really is just a pure, just like a good to the bones. Like every single bone in her body is really good. I think pretty much for her whole life. I don't know that she's actually ever done anything that's like naughty. My mom is like really pure. Yeah. And kindergarten teacher kind of just sums that up really well. But I remember we would always babysit. So my sisters and I would, and my brother even would babysit, because she would be like, oh, this family, is here. They need a babysitter. And she would always connect us with people. So, which is really special. And Michael, I don't know if you know this about when I was babysitting you guys. One of the things when I first started my podcast, Your Next Stop, I remember right away, I was like, I have to have Cynthia on. I have to have Cynthia on, because I remember being like 16, 17 years old and really being like, wow, this is so interesting to me. And that's right when your mom started taking pictures for the Eagles, which we'll get into it. But I just remember being, a young girl, a teenager, being like, I kind of want to be like her when I get older. Like the relationship you guys had with your dad, and just how like your mom was always just like, hey, yeah, we're going to go do this and we're going to do this, and always seemed so relaxed and wonderful. And I know when I had my kids, there was a lot of times where I wanted to emulate, what your mom did. And also your Aunt Tina, I always would laugh, because I'd be like, oh, see, Tina and I have that bedroom with all the, the clothes that are everywhere, which I know she's probably going to be like, yeah, thanks for throwing me under the bus.
No, it's funny you say that though, because she is a lot of positive energy coming out of my mom, and she's cool. She's fun. Even when we were in high school, we'd have friends over, and half the girls would stay upstairs and sit around the kitchen and talk with my mom, because it's fun. Had good talk.
And that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. I do, before we dive into this, anyone that is in the audience, we can do, and Michael, you can do this as well, and Cynthia, we can kind of do it together. If you click those two little dots or two little lines down to the left, we can all broadcast this to the world. So we can share it with our followers. We can send it to any of our friends and family, and they actually can listen to this, which is really cool. They can listen to this as we are speaking, and we don't even realize that they're there. So I'm going to be actually even sending it to my mom, which I know she'll really enjoy. And I did tell her, she, I think, is with my brother's kids right now, so she might not be able to jump on. But anyone in the audience to do that, because this just gets this message out even more, which is just really, again, it's going to be really fun, because we're really going to dive into kind of just your guys' life. not to throw it out there like that and make it sound creepy.
No, it's awesome. I'm so excited, because as it turns out, like this year especially, there's so many of the women that I got to know and befriend in the league that have kids going in, and or just that just signed. Like Erica Lassiter's son just signed. Joyce Turner's son just signed.
Yes.
And like for me, I'm like, I saw these kids as like babies. And so I kind of know where they're heading. So for me, I love to tell these kind of like tales of like, this is what I went through. And, you kind of learn something from it, and so I think it's pretty nice generationally to kind of like share your story to just
100%.
Because it is different.
And that's, I mean, the thing is, and I think you had said that, which I was like, that's so interesting because you're right, versus, being the wife or spouse versus being a mother. So
Right.
I first want to jump in and just ask Michael really quick, what are some of your earliest memories? And before you answer, I'm going to just kind of segue. I talk a lot about memories that we think of and then also memories that we feel. And they're two different things. Sometimes we can't actually picture the actual memory, but we have that feeling, like when we look back at our childhood, and it's that feeling, that energy that gets you excited. So I would love to know kind of like whether it's a memory or a feeling, what are some of your memories?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit of both. Pretty much like, you think about growing up and everybody has their own type of normal, right? And we basically grew up in the locker room, going to the vet with my dad. We play video games with like all the rookies in the locker room. And like we saw them just surrounded by football players. So that was my normal. So, ever from when I was very little, that was exactly who I always wanted to be. And I thought I knew that already. Like I knew who I was and I knew who I was going to be. So, you kind of feel that in a sense that it's not a big dream because it's reality. It's where you're from. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. And I remember when I first got to the Panthers and get in the locker room, you think you'd be like, ooh, awe over the scene and being in an NFL stadium. And it just kind of just felt normal. It was just like, I've been here before.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know I've, spoken to sons that went into the police force or the fire department or, a law firm or a doctor. And it is that similar thing. You see your parent grow up and it is different because it's like, okay, this is what they're doing. What is my path going to do? And where is that going to lead me? And so it's very interesting that when you were in that locker room, it was kind of like, yeah, this feels like home. Cynthia, I would love for you to tell the story because when you told me this, I think my mouth like hung because I was like, that is the coolest thing. Dallas versus Arizona Cardinals, the day that Michael Vincent, and I'm sorry, I have to call you Michael Vincent because I just do.
A lot of people do.
That's right. It's true. Michael Vincent. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was glad I shared that with you, but it is Michael. It is a really cool story.
Oh, it's awesome.
It is awesome.
So cool.
When Michael's, of course, my first, and we were in Arizona. And Michael was playing for Coach Gene Stallings. And I went into what Michael called fake labor. he called Coach Stallings and said, my wife is in fake labor right now. And he had a game in Dallas. So they were flying out. And Coach Stallings, he said, son, my wife, Ruth Ann, she would want me there. But son, I need you here. Yeah, I need you at this game. And I was like, Michael, like we were young and he was new and green and there wasn't any question for us that he was going to be at the game. But he stayed for Michael's labor pretty long. And then he got on the phone to call his dad, like, what should I do? I don't know what to do. And I was like, Michael, you're going to that game. You have to go to that game. So he caught a late flight to Dallas. And my sister and my girlfriend, Michelle Deal, were with me, with Michael Vincent. And it was a party. We were having so much fun waiting for Michael. And to the point that, the doctors were coming in and we were giggling and laughing. And then my sister decided that 10:29:89 sounded better than 10:28, 89. So we waited till midnight. And so it turns out that, here we're in Arizona, so it's different time. And Michael V is born. And I'm just like kind of shaky and everything. And they say, you have to tell Michael. And so I was like, oh, no, we'll tell him in the morning because he has a game and he's sleeping. And they're like, no, you'll tell him. So they put me on the phone. The next thing I know, I'm talking to Larry Wilson, who is like anybody knows the game, he's a Hall of Fame DB that my husband idolized. And so it was kind of weird that I was telling Larry Wilson about Michael being born. So I said, can you tell Michael in the morning that he had a son and his name is Michael Vincent? And he started laughing. He's like, I'll tell him right now. I will tell him right now. So Michael, my husband, got a knock on the door in the middle of the night. Larry Wilson tells him he has a son. So that was cool enough as it was. Well, then Michael goes on to play the game, and at Dallas, and the Cardinals, at that time, especially Dallas was just huge. And he ended up having this seriously insane game to the point that he had an interception that he ran back for a touchdown, which won the game. So in the USA Today, the next day, it said, kids' first gift, dad's game ball. Right, Michael?
Yeah. Yep. Baby's first toy, dad's game ball.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. And he had a cigarette burn on his face for all the new baby pictures because they were all out partying on the bus on the way back. And somebody turned and scorched him right in the cheek.
I mean, that to me is like the coolest story. And then Cynthia, you even took it a little bit further because you told me about how the doctors kept coming in and saying, hey, there's a bunch of people that want to talk to you. And you're like, I just had the baby. Okay. Because anyone that knows Cynthia, that's one of the things now, spending time with her, you really are very calm and collective. You're like, yeah, you just kind of let things roll, which is such a beautiful way. So can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. Well, the next day, first of all, my mother bought me this terrible striped muumuu to wear, after birth. So I had that on. I'm like feeding Michael V. Michael came in and we were having like that time together. And so one of the nurses came in and said, hey, there's somebody here that wants to photograph you guys. Do you mind coming in? So I was feeding him. I'm like, oh, sure. I'll finish feeding him and then, they can come in. And then I forgot, we were just talking everything. And then she came back in and she said, they said that they have a deadline of some sort. So can they come in now? So I was like, oh yeah. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot. So she opens the door and every single newspaper and television station from Arizona came into our room and surrounded us. So it was like on all the news, back in the day, every news station had their own story. You didn't just use each other's footage. And so it was like plastered everywhere in the papers. And like Michael, my husband, he looked so beautiful. He's holding Michael. Michael V looked so precious. And I looked like somebody blew me up. I looked like...
Well, you did just have a baby.
Fair. Yeah, very fair.
I was laughing and I had this straight thing on. And so I sent it to my mother, so excited. And she's like, what the hell are you wearing? I'm like, you bought that for me. She's like, not for the newspaper, It looks terrible. So, but we had those articles mean the world to us. And
I still have that and the ball.
In the ball.
Well, and the ball. I mean, that's what a special moment. I mean, and we talk about this a lot, your mom and I, and on all my podcasts, but there's moments, whether you believe in the God, God or the universe. I believe in God. So I love when God kind of just comes together and really blows things up and just makes something so special. So how special for your family to, have that story, because stories connect us, right? When your mom first told me that story, I was like, oh my God, you need to tell this all the time. How did you not tell me this before? This is like an unbelievable story. It makes me so happy. And I can picture, like your mom does such a great job because I can really picture being there and knowing, now that I have my own kids, having all these people come in right after you have a baby. I mean, and your mom, as cool as it come, you still kind of feel like a little beat up.
Oh, it was so funny. Yeah.
I can only imagine. But it is wild when like the stars align that way and, it's just out of your control. It just happens. It's really cool.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I want to go back a little bit to your first memories again, Michael. So, being in the locker room, I know that you guys, your 8th birthday was at Dave and Buster's. Do you remember that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, like glimpses, when you're young, you don't remember everything. But like I said, you're just surrounded by, guys like Kevin Turner and Rhett Hall and Andy Harmon, like all these just like mountains of men. And it was just, again, my normal. But, that was when Guns N' Roses and Pearl Jam and all that, they got their bandanas on. They're just huge and just so cool. All of them, when they would play with us all the time. And, it seems so spoiled, right? Like to be around that, like that's your day to day. And it's just something that I think stuck with me in a sense that how you carry yourself, what you want to be like, what kind of man do you want to like stand like, and those were my examples. So, maybe I was spoiled.
No, but you know what? And this is what, and I really think anyone that has kids or knows kids, you guys were also special kids. And I'm not just saying that, but like you were cool kids. Like I remember just babysitting you and being like, oh, they're cool. I mean, not all kids are cool. Some kids can be really annoying. And you guys just really were. You rolled with the punches. You kind of just, you were always really polite, but you also were like curious. So like you weren't just the quiet kids that stood there. I mean, sometimes we all have our moments, but you guys got into it and you like would talk to people and ask questions. And those kind of kids, for adults, those are the kind of kids that you want around. Like, that's like special and fun. So I would never call it spoiled because it really is your life. You were fortunate, you were blessed. Those are, more of the words that I kind of think about when you think about your story.
Yeah, well, a lot of what you just said are both my parents' personalities, and maybe they just kind of like seep into you as you're in your upbringing. I think they did an awesome job with us of, being raised like in a football family. NFL football players, you tend to make a lot of money and you could get caught up in that world. But our upbringing, they did an awesome job of just keeping us grounded and keeping things normal and, keeping us around our friends and just letting us see what like life is actually all about, what it really is. And that sounds deep now, but, in retrospect, thinking back on it, it makes total sense. And when we were little kids, we had no idea that was what they were doing. Maybe they didn't even do it intentionally, but that's how it all went down.
It's interesting you say that because we always kid that we raised the kids in a tailgate, but like our goal was never really to get rid of them or to do our own thing. Our goal was to hang out with them, and they got to know our friends, and they were always so respectful to our friends, and our friends were very respectful to them. And then when the tables turned and it was their turn to bring their friends into our lives, I feel like I hope that we are always respectful to their friends and we got to know them independently, just like they got to know our friends independently. And it just it worked in that full circle. Now that we look back on it, I feel like I don't even really look at my kids' friends as that anymore. I talk to them on my own. And I know, Michael, when you went to the Panthers, one of the first people you saw was Ricky Prohl, who was one of those guys that you knew as a little boy. And he's like, last time I saw you, you had blueberry all over your face. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that kind of like goes back to walking in there and like things are normal. That was Ricky Prohl was there. I loved him growing up. And then here he is. He's a coach on the staff and the team I just signed with. It was really cool.
So cool. Cynthia, I'm going to ask you just to move your hair a little bit behind it, scratching a little bit on the mic.
You got it.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks. Okay. So then I want to talk about fourth grade is when you really started football. Your dad was your coach. What did that mean to you?
Everything, it was like finally we get to play. I think it was actually fifth grade was my first year because that was when my dad started. So that was,
okay.
It was like you're going to start when I did. And, it was awesome to have him on as a coach, obviously, but he was never the type of dad that was pushy or gonna you're gonna do this, you're gonna play. It was always like, be who you want to be, do what you want to do. But if you're gonna do this, do it right. And just growing up in Youngstown, especially, there's a lot of tradition there, a lot of football tradition, and it instills like a certain attitude and a lot of lessons that you learn. I mean, my grade school coach, Ken Kohler, he's still coaching these kids now. Same field. We would practice at night from 6 to 7:30, and the parents would pull their cars up and turn their headlights on, and that was how they lit the practice field. And he would wear these like old cotton shorts, boots, and a wife beater every day to practice. That was who.
Right.
And he just still does the very same thing, drives the same van. And I think that's like indicative of Youngstown, really. Not a lot of change, but a lot of there's a mentality there.
I mean, that's so special. And I have to say, and when your mom comes back, she can touch on this too, but we had Rachel on, she's a track coach to her kids. And what I loved is that she would say, when she is coaching her kids, she wears the coach's hat. When she's the mom, she wears, the mom hat. And she said sometimes it's really, the lines can get really fine. Did you ever feel like your dad was holding back, or, there was times where he was more the dad on the field, or was he coach on the field?
No, he was always coach, and he does a good job. I mean, I think that's why he's still coaching today, of, pulling you to the side when he needs to and saying it more personal, like, and once he realized that I was really into this, and, he would get more involved on the field, but it was never, he never stepped on other coaches' toes or anything like that. It was just kind of like, he knew how much it mattered to me, and that I cared. So he was, he was around, and he was there, and he was with me for it.
And you know what I love and what I love that you said is that your dad knew it was something that you wanted to do. And I think that is something special of your family that I know. It wasn't that you were pushed into the game. It was like, okay, let's see where this is. It's not something that you you have to do. It is, let's see if this is what you're meant to do. And that, again, really brings us back to God or the universe. It's like we all have a path. We have to find it. And just knowing your family, and as you grew and just hearing little bits, it was like, this is something Michael Vincent he's really taken to, he's really good at, but he really wants it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Cynthia, do you want to add, or is Chucky yelling?
Sorry. Yeah, I had Chucky situations. No, I love that. The memories I have, and the images I have, the stories, that connection that my boys have with their dad because of that time together it's so special. It was the greatest decade of my husband's life.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I remember there was a time when I was in like 6th grade, and you know how other parents and other dads can be, and people were talking about me because I wasn't performing like my dad did. And it's like, you're comparing a 6th grade kid
Right.
to an NFL football player. Like, come on, guys, like, he's a kid.
Right.
And I remember, like, it would annoy me, but like I was quiet about it, but he could tell. And so he pulled me aside and talked to me. He was like, "Hey, don't listen to all that. Do you want to do this? Like, is this what you want?" I was like, "Yes, like, absolutely." And he was like, "All right, then we're going to do it right." And from that day on, he like would work with me, just kind of in my head, just like keeping positive energy, confidence, and like letting me know that like that is a bunch of bullshit what they're saying. You could just go have fun. This is a game, remember. And from then on, it just kind of built. And like my mom said, through high school, everything, he was on the field with us, and those memories are really strong emotional memories that we always have. And I think about him a lot with that, because he could have went right into coaching after he retired, but he stepped out so he could coach us, and he did it for 10 years. And that's a big sacrifice, because he just got back into coaching, and you know how things go. And so it meant a lot what he did. I know me and my brother talk about that often.
And he'll say, that was a very selfish decision. I did it for myself. I wasn't going to miss it, But, Michael, you reminded me of something I forgot about. Because, I can say this, that you're a very sensitive person. You always were a very sensitive person. And sometimes people see big guys and they think that for some reason that they are not capable of being sensitive, but he always was. He never wanted to hurt anybody's feelings. But sometimes he would get hurt, by that kind of like, people might insinuate, that he was doing what he was doing because of his connections to his dad. That's not true. You
Right.
play if you're good, and that's it. And I remember, like, we always had this thing where I don't know why, I look back on this and think, why was I like this? But I didn't let the kids put posters on their walls in their bedrooms. That's almost like not even fair. But I did do that. And I remember saying to Michael one time, like, hey, listen, I give you permission to mark up your walls with every negative thing that anybody ever says about you, because maybe you could use that as something, because you're not going to get that here. Like, we're certainly not going to say anything to you to give you that edge or to give you that chip, but if it helps you and you can use that to make you angry, to make you do something that you want to do that, because, they're going to say it. So you're going to have to do something with it. So rather than let it bury you, why don't you just let it kind of like, give you that kind of like energy or whatever. So he started to handle it really, really well when I think he really came into his own. And that's just hard work and nature, and talent. But he did, I think, when you got to that point where, I mean, my God, he's fourth grade, the people are saying, oh.
I know. And that has to be, I mean, that's again, I mean, my kids and I talk about this often, especially my boys, talking about professional athletes and their kids and that pressure on that kid before it is even what their path is. And, we say like that, you have to be a special family, special son, special father, special parent, mother to navigate those waters because people can be so cruel. I don't know why people can be so cruel and so judgy and so having, you could hear in your voice, Michael, when you were talking about that, like that definitely was something that was a turning point because your dad was like, listen, we're going to take that. And as your mom said, and go because that had to been all the time, like people comparing you and you're a different person, right? You have different parents. You have, your father, but you also have your mother and then you have other things and there's genes. And so when people do that, I think it's so harmful. Even just for any kid, any family to have people judge that and especially when you're in fourth grade. And so I love that's how your family handled it. It was like, you know what? I mean, and as you said, you laugh like I'm in fourth grade. My dad's an NFL player. Just give me some time. I'm just learning.
Right. And not even just learning, like I'm a kid. I'm just trying to have fun, yes, I want to play football, but is it that serious right now?
Right.
And, people get kind of caught up. I think that, the using the negative energy and the anger as a motivator was like a big switch that hit. And that was once I like really started playing. And then, once high school came and you started like actually becoming yourself and coming into your own, that kind of, it was very easy to laugh off because of that early lesson on, block out that noise that they have no idea what's going on in your head. And then, just kind of using that as a motivator on the field. It was a cool life lesson that, honestly, we didn't like sit down and talk about all the time. We just kind of naturally handled it together and,
right.
it like eased its way into fruition.
Exactly.
Which I love. And Cynthia, did you want to add something there?
Well, I just, the one thing that I really loved and appreciated is that, Cardinal Mooney High School, going from that fourth grade up and now into high school, it was a powerhouse and the talent that was on the team, it was extraordinary. It was unbelievable. Like, Michael, how many guys did you have that went D1 that year, your senior?
Nine guys.
That's insane, right? That's insane.
9 guys. But as good as they all were, and I was especially proud of Michael, they still were just having fun.
Right.
They were actually fun even on the field. I mean, of course, they were just like creaming everybody and they all just were high skill, but they still were gentlemen. They were still like good guys on the field, even to the opposing teams. Right, Michael?
Yeah. It was just fun. It was, high school football. Fun. You're supposed to have fun playing it. We were just friends, playing football. So,
right.
Which is really special. And then this segues me. This is perfect the way this just lined up. But this takes me to that you were recruited by every major school as a linebacker and you chose Penn State. Can you tell us a little bit about what Penn State means to you and why you chose Penn State?
Yeah, it always meant a little something to me. Obviously, my parents went there and we would go to games, but it was never an obnoxious thing in the family. I was never going there. It wasn't like written in stone. But we went on a visit one time and I went to other schools and, you hear the spiels from all the coaches and, everybody ends up in their own way saying the same thing. But I remember we went to Penn State and my grandma came, my grandpa came, my great grandma came, and my mom and dad. And I think I don't even know if Joe talked to me the whole time he was in the corner. I saw him talking with grandma. Grandpa, he remembered all the names. He's asking about aunts and uncles and cousins. And this is from '86.
So cool.
So I just remember I was sitting there thinking, like, what am I doing? What am I even thinking about? Like, this is what the game is about. Let's go here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And it was just that easy.
Right.
I made the decision quick, and it was cool too, because then I got to just embrace my senior year and enjoy my friends and not have to, worry about any big decisions. It was already made and it was already done.
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to say, because now I played two college sports, and I remember that pressure of like, okay, you need to know where you're going, and on my when we played, Morristown was, I mean, the girls, we won states in field hockey and lacrosse. We were a huge powerhouse. And so I remember someone would sign, and you'd be like, okay, is it my turn? And it is a pressure that sometimes is undue. So, like, to know, okay, this is really cool. This is where I'm going now. As you said, I can enjoy my senior year. I can go, to that next state. So, talk a little bit about being a player at Penn State.
Um, that was some of my like most fun football was being there. We had a nice team, like nice camaraderie, a lot of great friends. But that pressure that you talk about, making those decisions, I feel like a lot of it is external. It's other people and other
Oh yeah,
noise and media and all that stuff. And again, you are essentially a kid. You're 17 years old. You're just having fun. So you're not putting that much on it. And it was just so great to make that decision and then get there. And then, once you get there, you realize how home it is, and it's family. And I mean, fit right in with all the guys, and just had so much fun playing there. It was just really cool, kind of surreal. Once you really make the decision to go there, you're like, wow, my dad played here. My mom went here. It ended up like kind of just becoming me. And it was really great. Loved every second of it.
right. Which is so special. Cynthia, did you want to add something?
Well, it became him, but he became so much part of it. I'm like so proud of Michael's legacy at Penn State and everything that Michael and his seniors did at Penn State in that 2012 year, when it was really about having to save the program and save our legacy, save what we worked hard for. I feel like they did so much. Not, they did it for the game, and they did it for themselves. And they did it for their friendships, but they knew it, and they realized that it was a bigger purpose as well. And what they did there, in staying when they were all free to leave during all the sanctions at Penn State in 2012 with Coach O'Brien. To me, like, I went to Penn State, and my son and my husband, like, they have a mark on Penn State. That to me is like unbelievable. Like, and I'm really proud of all of those boys and all of that year and everything that they did for
Right.
all of us.
Right. I mean, and that again is, I mean, I remember, because I remember being like, oh, Michael goes there. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to Penn State. What a heartbreak. Like, Penn State is football. Even where I grew up, it was like, you knew that was a football powerhouse. And the fact that, Cynthia, as you said, you guys went there and it was a legacy. I mean, take us a little bit. And then, Michael, I would love for you to touch on it as well. But I mean, as you said, how proud you were what Michael did, because he could have left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all could have left. And like what Michael and Motts and Coach O'Brien and Matt McGloin and John Herschel, they kind of rallied together and said, we have to remind everybody of why we should stay. Like, everybody's telling us we can go, but we need to talk about why we should stay. And it became like this strategic kind of circle of just everybody just tapping into the emotions of everybody. And sometimes you just need to have somebody point out to you, like, what does this mean if you leave, but what does it mean if you stay?
Right.
And at the time, John Bacon was following Michael V and Michael Motti to write a book called Fourth and Long. So he just accidentally was documenting every single part of the journey. And it was incredible that he was there for that. So it was also really helpful to really be able to process later, because I don't want to speak for you, Michael, but I think at the time you guys were just in survival mode. So it really took evaluating it later to really appreciate what had gone down and what you guys did, huh?
No, absolutely. Because we were focused on the now of things, I just think that whole series of events, it's kind of odd how natural we all handled it. And I think it goes back to how we were raised and what we grew up in, your type of normal, what football meant to us was more than just like a way out. It was more than a like a success story. It was, we were playing for the game and like the love of the game and, what the game means to you. And that was what I grew up around, teammates, locker room, have each other's back, more so who you are as a man than what you are as a player. And, those kind of decisions are very small in like in the instant, like in the now, but then down the road, they kind of snowball into like a much bigger effect. And, I've all the positions I've played and the way I've always played the game is it's always been like a shared emotion for me, selfless kind of thing. I like really delve into that. I really love that aspect of the game, sacrifice yourself for your teammate. I just, that's something that matters to me. So when everything happened and the sanctions hit and the Sandusky thing, it's so terrible what happened, but the sanctions were, they hit and we kind of, it was almost without question. We were like, well, we can't leave. Like we just spent 4 years playing together, practicing together, working together. Like this is our senior year and we're all just going to like split up and go elsewhere. Who are we going to be on that team? We're just some other guy now. Like we had relationships that were built. It was a serious bond. So it's funny how a smaller thing can impact such a bigger thing because we were really protecting ourselves in that game and, Saturdays in the stadium. And in doing that, we had an impact on the whole university and how, we kind of flipped the script on the sanctions and what people thought about Penn State football because of us just wanting to play the game together. And I think that that's pretty powerful, how simple it can be.
And you know what I love so much is that was Sandusky's story. That wasn't your story. Mm-hmm. And so you created your own story. You didn't let what he did and the terribleness that he did take you guys down and tarnish that. That was his story. And so, from what you did, and again, I remember, following this and being like, I babysat him, and talking about it. Because you really, and again, as you said, the way you were brought up, the love for the game is so apparent in you, even when you speak, the love for the game. And I think that's what's so important. And so many people lose sight of that. It's, again, as you said, it's the notoriety, it's this and that. But you, and even knowing your dad, like you guys love the game. Like that is so ingrained in you. So I know there was a documentary, it's called Saving the Roar. Can you tell people where they can find that and a little bit about that? I mean, it is the story.
Yeah, Michael Nash out of Beverly Hills Productions called us and they wanted to tell the story. And it was something that we knew was going to eventually happen, but we were like, kind of skeptical on who's going to tell it, how it's going to be told, what's it going to turn into. And we got to know him and he's so awesome and just very true. So we were immediately signed on with him. We were like, let's do this. And he really told the story from our perspective, which was interesting because nobody had really heard our side of the story. It had been, the ESPNs and the CNNs of the world telling the Penn State story. And it just really, a lot of it wasn't true. And it was cool to get our stuff out there. And it ended up being, it was one of those things where I left Penn State and got right into the, NFL trying to go there. And so you kind of put everything that just happened on the back burner and just focus on, who your dream that you had your whole life,
right.
So once you got into that, you move on and we hadn't really talked about it at all until this, documentary came to be. And it ended up being like this almost therapeutic open, like we just opened up and we were like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was holding in because of that. Cause I just kind of locked it away. And it was really, really cool, very powerful. And if you want to check it out, you can watch it at savingtheroar.com. Yeah. And they'll stream it. It is, I'm really happy with how they did it.
Right.
Yes.
Cynthia, I want them to get on Netflix. I'm hoping, and they're working on it, but it is a story of any kind of bond, whether your community's bonding or your team is bonding. But to see individuals like, for instance, a Coach O'Brien who put himself in a position to allow seniors to give him good advice about how they should navigate this and to listen. Like, to me, it's just everybody just stripped away their rules and just said, like, this is all about us and what should we do here? So it's really worth seeing, right, babe?
It is. It really is. And we look back on it now, like me and my teammates, and, it's silver linings, right? Mm-hmm. As bad as everything seemed, it kind of forced us into our own little bubble, but it also, we got to a point where once we realized we were feeling the team and we were going to play, it was like, hey, we only have Saturdays. We can't go to a championship. We're not going to a bowl game. We can't do we have 12 games and that's all we have together. So like, let's make every single one count. Let's have a blast doing it. And we were able to just enjoy the game without having to worry about all the outside BS. So ironically, like brought us closer to the game and each other, which I thought was really cool. I take that away with me. Like that's a very beautiful thing that happened.
So beautiful. I mean, and you guys created your own story. And that's what's
Hmm.
beautiful. You gave Penn State a positive story and you spun it that way because it was a positive story. How you guys sat there and said, no, we're not going to leave. This means too much to us. We love the game. We love our university. And so I think that's amazing. Standing guard for Joe Paterno. I mean, what did that mean? When you got that call?
Yeah, that was a powerful moment because me and Joe were very close. We had our own little special relationship. I was considered, I guess, an old school player, the way I played, and it was right up his alley. And he loved every bit of that. Plus, he coached my dad, and we had our own little thing.
Yeah.
So to be able to stand there, like it was very emotional. Just a lot of memories, a lot of like thoughts just running through your head. I mean, he was so special and so important in the making of me as a football player, just basically on how you approach the game, how you handle things, and how you work with your teammates. He had a huge impact on me, and I think on the team and how we responded to that. Getting to know Coach O'Brien, and I loved Coach O'Brien so much, and that we were able to form this relationship that we still have today. But he was dealing with a lot of Joe guys too that learned those lessons and saw the game a certain way, and he loved it. Like he was all about it, and he really embraced that. And then we were able to embrace him in doing so. We were able to handle everything. But when they asked me to stand next to Joe, I just remember like, wow, what an honor, like what an honor. It's a very powerful thing.
So powerful. Cynthia, did you want to add anything there?
No, it was incredible. I mean, just to see the boys, and then of course Michael Motti, he's like one of our own, and he was got to speak on the behalf of the team for Joe. It was just really special to see these two boys, and his father had played as well at Penn State, so it was just a really, as terrible it was, and as terrible it was for all the victims and anybody that was affected by everything that happened. You're right, Michael. It's silver linings. There are, whenever there's any kind of tragedy, you have to pull together as a community or as a team or as a family, and you have to survive it. You just have to find a way to survive it. And I think by focusing on what was one thing that you could control, which was you showing up on Saturdays, that did have that effect that kind of trickled out and was a nice ripple effect of survival for a lot of people. While we were all mourning for so many different reasons, so yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, so much history, so many stories. Now I'm going to take us to draft day. So we're jumping. I mean, which I know, again, being your babysitter, I was like, "Ooh, what's Mike? This is so exciting!" Like, and knowing again your family and just what good people and how hard you guys have worked and how much you have loved the game. To know that this was happening that day is so, because it's not guaranteed, right? There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in life, period. And so this is also not a guarantee. So take us a little bit through that.
Yeah, start with that.
Go ahead. Go for it.
I just have to tell something funny to intro it. So I said to Michael, I'm like, so what do you want to do for draft day? What are you thinking? And because I don't want to have people there. If he doesn't want people there, I don't know what he is expecting. He says, well, no big deal, Mom, just the family. And I said, oh, okay, cool. Just family. And then, so I was kind of like, I left the room and I came back. I'm like, Michael, so like, what does that mean? Like, what does the family mean? He's like, us, the family, the Pittsburgh crew, the cousins. I'm like, okay. So
Right.
Huge party, like, all weekend we had everybody over, right? So then you can go on.
Yeah, no, it was the last day of the draft because we kind of knew that I wasn't going to get drafted or I was going to, be picked up late. So once the draft ended, like as soon as it ended, my, phone started ringing. I had a couple options from other teams. And I just, get the call and we're sitting in there talking. Who was it? The Bills, the Browns, the Panthers were coming up, and Ricky Prohl came. We started talking about him, and my mom, my dad, and me were in the back, and we were just like, "It's the Panthers. We're gonna go." So we made that decision and walked out, and the whole crew. And ironic because my mom said I was raised at a tailgate. Well, everybody that was at those tailgates was in the kitchen. You know,
Oh,
it
I
was
love it.
like Aunt Jackie, Uncle Chuck, Uncle Don. So everybody that was always partying that I grew up with at the tailgates was there. And, you know, we just announced I was going to the Panthers. Everybody like erupted, like we were laughing. We had a lot of fun. You know, that was, again, we didn't put much pressure on ourselves over it. You know, it's going to happen. You know, either way, I'm going to get a shot. I knew that. And that was really all I wanted. So whatever news came was good news. And it was a really special day.
Didn't everybody start singing Sweet Caroline?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
They were singing.
They did.
Everybody was singing Sweet Caroline, and we just partied all night. It was really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's so special.
It was surreal. I remember being in the back room with my parents, and like my dad was, you know, we're sitting in the room, and he, you know, there's a couple of his helmets are up there and all this stuff, and he's on the phone and he's taking notes on who's calling this and that, and like I just remember the piece of paper of the teams and in my dad's handwriting, and I'm on the phone looking at it, and I was just like, how about this? Like this is, you know, this is finally coming full circle. This is pretty cool. Yeah. You know, and I remember like taking in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great that you could take it in, you know, but, you know, I could picture you guys painted that so beautifully, just being with your mom at the Super Bowl, knowing some of that group, just a special, I mean, the love, you know, there's energy, there's love, there's excitement, just from that. So, all right, we're going to go into the injury. Cynthia, did you want to add anything before that?
No, but it's actually interesting because, you know, come the good times and all the people that surround you, come the bad times and everybody that surrounds you. And so it was devastating. You know, I was like back in the 80s in my mother-in-law's family room, where if you jump too hard, the entertainment unit would start to come down.
Right.
And now we're watching Michael V, and you know, all of a sudden there was a close up of Michael, and I just turned to Uncle Buzzy Michael. I'm like, why is there a close up of Michael? And everybody in the room turned white, and I just ran out the door. I just ran out the door, and I left. But my husband was at the game, and so Michael, you know.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. He was able to make it. It was my first. We had just gone through camp, and it was our first preseason game, and it was the first kickoff, and I, you know, didn't hit anything or nothing. I just was running and dropped. My knee slipped and tore my ACL. So I was down there, and it was actually happened right on the yard line that my dad was standing on the field. So I always thought that was kind of weird. So we go into the locker room, and it's like totally empty, and it's just me and my dad in there. I'm taking off pads, and I'm pissed off because like, fuck, you know, like that sucks. And it was, again, it's just so awesome to have him there with me. And it was disappointing, but at that time still, it was like, hey, we're good. We're going to fix this thing, and we'll get right back to it. And next year we're good. You know, there was never any doubt. But I do remember it meant a lot to my dad because, you know, that was my first camp, and I had come out of Penn State feeling pretty good. And I was playing like some of the best football in my life in that summer. And I was like ready to go. I honestly didn't have like any doubts about it. Like I was making the team. And then that happened. And, you know, I built a lot of good relationships in that short amount of time with a lot of the players. So, you know, the game ends, and I'm on the table got ice on my knee, and my dad's standing there, and Ryan Vermillion and Sherm, the trainers, are with us, and all the guys come storming in after the game, and like all of these like heavy hitters from the Panthers, you know, Greg Olson, Steve Smith, D'Angelo Williams, like the whole, like a lot of like the major guys who usually, you know, they're vets that have been playing for 12 years. Here's this undrafted free agent rookie gets hurt. Like usually that kind of just goes by, you know,
right.
They care, but it's not, you know, they came in one by one, checking up on me, you know, like telling me to keep my head up, this, that. And I just remember my dad was in the corner, and he saw that. And I think that mattered more to him than anything, because he saw, like, you know, the impact, and like, you know, these guys cared, and it meant a lot to me for them to take that time, or even just to be thinking about me like that. And I'll never forget that memory. Like that was really cool of them, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, and Cynthia, this is one of the things that I always wanted to kind of dive into, and I've always wanted to ask, but I'm like, oh, this is a perfect situation to ask. As a mother and as a, you know, a spouse, a wife, you know, as a spouse wife, we don't so much protect our spouse and or we have a relationship with our husbands, and we kind of see them up here, right? But when you have a kid that's in there, you've always protected that child. And so for you to see this happen to Michael, you know, what was the difference? And I don't know, did Michael Sr., did he ever get injured or ever have any?
He did. He had an injury, but I was too young and too in love with him as a guy, you know, as a person to be worried, you know, about
Right.
this. I didn't know about this dream or this. I just knew that this is, you know, it's a weird when I look back on it, that I was very much just about normal life, you know, because, you know, Michael's career was long, but it was not like every year in the beginning, we didn't know if he would be there or not, you know, climbing into it. You know, it wasn't
Right.
until Philly that we were like, whoa, you know, right. So it was like, I just kind of went along with things. But with your kids too, we didn't raise them to have this dream of, you know, making it to the league. We just took it, you know, here you're playing in like little league, then you're playing high school, and then you're playing college. You know, we really never talked about it. Like Michael said, he probably just figured it. So I don't think that when it happened to Michael, I didn't have this devastated, like, oh my God, it's over. Because you see a lot of people get injured and you just kind of feel like, you know, you're really upset about it. But I didn't feel like it was, oh, this is over. Oh my God, you know, this is over. But I do know how sensitive he is. And I did want to know how he was feeling. I did want to know what was going on in his head and his heart, so I would be able to kind of say the right things, you know.
Right.
And you know, Michael, am I allowed to say this?
You're going to.
Am I allowed? Well, I'm have to.
Am I allowed to say this? So Michael and I always, you know, shared writing and reading, and we, you know, both really loved Ernest Hemingway, you know, and Jack London, and you know, he likes, you know, some other crazy, like, you know, Hunter S. Thompson and stuff like that. But we always share like writing and reading and books. And so I was like, well, Michael, can you write something for me? Because he writes a lot of dialogue. Can you write something for me so I can understand what that moment felt like for you? And
so special.
And he wrote me, like, it was, you know, it was gut wrenching, you know, to like read what was going on. I didn't realize how far and how deep this emotion was until I, you know, read his words that were so beautifully. And of course, he will never let me share it. And it just frustrates me. So I think I'll put it on the back of my tombstone or something. I just heard that a woman did that with cookie recipe. So I'm going to do that with my stone. But it's so beautiful because it was raw and honest, and it was bigger than I realized. And so I was like, from there, backed off and just allowed him to go through his rehab, which, my God, the Panthers, they treated him so beautifully through his awesome rehab. Huh, Michael?
Yeah. Oh, they were awesome. And again, like, it didn't become the injury until like after the game was gone. You know, then it was like, shit, that really, you know, put a dent in things. Because once it happened, you know, you don't question your confidence, nothing. You're like, I'm gonna fix this. We're gonna go back next year. So that whole year was like, there was still no questions. Just, I'm gonna rehab. I'm gonna get better. And then, you know, you get coming to next camp, and I remember getting back on the field and playing, and I was just like in my head, feeling good, but like, damn, it's not clicking the same. Like, I'm not the same right now. I'm not the same. And it kind of showed. It wasn't bad by any means, but I just wasn't the same guy I was the year before. And I was really getting frustrated with it. And, you know, then, you know, I got cut, and then I was out for a little bit, started working out, training, trying, was just waiting for phone calls. Just like, please, somebody call me, give me another
Oh, he got a phone call.
Didn't really. Sorry, I had a little. I kind of.
Your phone call, no worries.
You know, I get with the Saints, but practice squad didn't really get to showcase much, and you know, ended up getting cut from there, and just from then on, the phone like really just didn't ring, and then that was when it all started to like kind of sink in, like, shit, like this, like there's no way, you know. So that was when the injury became the injury, and like I started to accept the fact that it happened instead of like, didn't happen, I'm going to get through it, you know. And there was a lot of crazy times that went into that. You know, it does a lot to you mentally, because you don't, you know, you talk about added pressure, but then you get to a certain point where, like, you know, I'm not trying to live up to my dad's standards, or I'm not playing because of my dad. It becomes like pressure that you put on yourself, because it's your dream. It's who you want to be, and it's the only thing you've ever really wanted to do. So it's like that, the pressure is all yours. So it's only yours to handle. So it's kind of, it takes you to a certain place where, you just, there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of anger, and it's a wild place, and it's hard to navigate at times.
Right. And so I do want to ask you, because then I do want to get into your pivot. But do you think when you stepped on that field after your injury, that when you said you just didn't feel like you were playing at that level, was it in more in your mind because it like you were nervous of getting hurt again, or was it more of it just your knee was never the same?
I don't know. You want to say it wasn't your mind, but maybe it was a little bit. But it was definitely, I just didn't have the bounce that I had. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I don't know. But I just knew that coming off the field, like I didn't feel as good about my performance walking off the field as I did the year before. I just didn't feel like the same like power, the same bounce, the same reaction. Maybe in my head, I'd like to think that I was confident enough to I wasn't worried about it going, or it wasn't this, but maybe subconsciously I was tiptoeing a little bit, and I wasn't I was not playing like the reckless abandon me that usually played the game. So because that was like one of my biggest assets as a player was just like sacrificing my body and enjoying that like violence and the contact and I just really
Right.
I thrived on that. So maybe, not having that same, balls to the wall instinct messed with me, and it's amazing to me too, because there's some guys that have 3, 4, 5 of these injuries come back, and they're just killing it. Like it never happens. So, everybody reacts differently. You you get in your own head, and was I being soft? Did I handle that like weak? Did I not do how come he could and I couldn't? But I think everybody handles it, just happens differently in everybody's head. So it was
Right.
really interesting. That I think that was a lot of the grappling, a lot of the wrestling that I did was like not questions about like what I wanted to do or could I do it. It was what's going on? Why am I not me? Why, like, what's, that was strange for me, because up until that point, I had never had a serious injury. So, I played hurt and dinged up, and, nobody gets through the game without like some sort of injury. But that was like the first surgery, first thing. And it was odd. It was all kind of like out of nowhere. So it was really, different to handle.
And I have to say, selfishly, I asked that for selfish. My oldest has an injury. He's had two pretty big ones. And the first one, when he went back, it took him a little while. It took him a little while to be that guy and he plays soccer. I know different, but the going up for a header in the box was his thing. And that's when he got injured. And so it took him a little while. And I remember being like, wow, he's actually in his head. And for me as a parent to try to help him get out of that, I realized I couldn't. It was something that he had to do on his own. He had to get his confidence back and not be nervous that was going to happen again, because he never felt that kind of pain. So that was a really selfish question that I asked you that way, because I just wanted to, kind of get in it, because I think for some players it is like you never get back to the same, because it's a mental thing, not a physical thing. But then also some of them, it is a physical thing, not a mental thing.
No, I think like that is the question to ask, like, because it all happens in your head, like all
Right.
of it, so if you can't handle that, or if you're struggling with that, it's going to come out in your play. That's like, there's not every quarterback that's ever performed well is a confident one. That's just how the game works. And so if you even question a little bit of your confidence, it's going to show. And so, there's definitely something, you question who, why, what's going on up there. And that was a new thing for me, because a short memory, get back, like that's what it's the kind of player I was. And so it was different for me to be like, where'd he go, where's he at? So it was
it's
and it really
interesting to me too, because like when I look at it, from the very beginning, it just seems that with the league, especially all professional sports, there's that timing, there's that talent, there's that opportunity, and you never know how that was going to work for you or against you. And at that particular time, for whatever reason that the Panthers needed that spot at that second, was taking that opportunity away, where you just don't know why. Yeah, you have to look ahead to say, why was the universe making this happen? Because, somehow, some way, one person goes and it has this trickle effect on the whole team. And so with Michael, it was like they didn't have the luxury of giving him more time because something had happened within the organization, or with Michael, something was happening inside that he, you just don't know. It's crazy.
That's a mother's natural way of questioning things, but
Yeah.
I got cut. I didn't play as well as I did the year before.
No, I know that. But I mean,
I got cut. It's like, what happened? I just wasn't the same guy. So I went, it's just those big questions. Yeah. But those big questions are all like, those are the ones that are in your head. There's the football aspect. I never questioned like the why they got rid or this or that, because it's the game and that going into it. Everybody tells you that the whole way up, it's not for long, right? It's you got to be lucky too. You hear all these sayings, it just is what it is. It's a cutthroat league, and that's how it goes. So it's happened to 10,000 guys before me. So I couldn't question that side of things. My questions were more like on me.
Gotcha.
What.
Gotcha, babe. Mm-hmm.
Which is actually special. And I love that you said that, because my kids always will sometimes be like, is this mom goggles or like real life? And as parents, we do. I mean, we always want to protect our children. That's what, that's what we were, born to kind of do, but it's also to let you guys fly, and help you through situations. So I love that little interaction there. That was actually really, really, really cool. So now I want to take, because I know we are running over time, but we're not cutting this short, because this is the meat of the pivot, which when your mom started telling me a little bit about this, I think is just so, so cool. So after your injury, the Panthers were really great to you. I mean, right? I mean, they were there for you. Leonard Wheeler, can you tell us a little bit about some of that as you were pivoting the league and realizing, okay, this is not my journey anymore?
Yeah, he was awesome, because I had, it took me a little while to accept the fact that the phone wasn't ringing and that, hey, we might actually have to start looking for other things. And that was when I kind of went into like a dark, scatterbrain kind of place where I got, just down on myself, and then, just bad habits and, looking for an escape, just you go to a dark place. It was I guess you call it a depression, but it was a lot of anger too. It was just, I totally disappeared for myself. I just went a little crazy because it was the one thing that I wanted to do. It was my dream, and it was the only thing I ever really thought about. And they tell you growing up, they bring people in to talk to you in the locker room or in squad meetings to say life after football and this and that, and your schoolwork. And I was a good student. I did good in school and I took it seriously, but it was always like football for me. And even when those guys would come in and talk, you'd listen to them, but you'd be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Like, this is what I'm doing, right. And that's also a part of like the training in like to be mentally strong, to like not question your beliefs or like what you're going to do. Like, it's your dream. So yeah, this is how you feel about it. So it was very hard for me to get rid of that confidence and accept the fact that like, that's not me anymore. Like that whole idea that I had is gone. And
right.
So now what the hell are you going to do? And then, not to boot, like I never thought about what the hell I was going to do after football. No matter how many people you brought into the room to tell me to think about what I was doing after football, I was not thinking about that. It's because if I'm thinking about that, then I'm not thinking about playing football. So where's the energy going? And that was kind of like my whole stance the whole way through. So it was kind of like, just blindsided by this thing where I'm not going to play anymore. Now, who the hell am I without this thing? Because football shaped me in so many ways, like from growing up to, the controversies and adversities of it, just to also like how I am when I have passion for something and what I'm like when I don't. And, you kind of, it like reintroduces you to yourself and what you're all about. So going through that was very wild for me. And I think that I couldn't handle it. So I escaped with, just partying or, just being out there. Like I went a little wild, and it took me a while to figure out like that I had to calm down and that this isn't you. You're going through it right now. You're really fucking going through it. And
Right.
so I had to kind of just deal with that. But, in that time, I did a couple interviews with, for some job opportunities or, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I had no idea. Like, I remember like writing down questions on what I was going to ask. And then like on my way to the thing, like, what am I asking about? Like, what is this for? Like, I didn't even like have an ounce of energy for what I was going to sit down and talk about, so it was very interesting to like, wake up to the fact that you have to kind of discover like something, but that also led me to like, you have to do, like, even if it's just something little, like you have to like do something, you have to give yourself a purpose day in, day out to like climb out of that hole that you put yourself into. And, for me, it was like just trying a whole bunch of things, like I go to work, I would, everything that I didn't like, it was like checking off the list. Okay, so I don't like to do that. It was like a trial and error almost. And then once I eliminated like the many things that I didn't like about the world that I was now in, it was like, oh, this is what I'm about. This is what I am. This is what I want to do. So it's kind of like, what people don't talk about or realize is the mindset and the people that you're surrounded by, like, and what you're used to. And now, like, you go from a locker room where you're like around like-minded guys who feel the same way about like, team over everything, pain is gain, like how to handle stress, like just like that mentality is not here in like the real world. It's like there's none of that. So, a lot of the interviews that I do or got people that I talk to, I just had nothing in common with. It was like I was like an alien, They just didn't see things the way I did. And that was my biggest struggle. Like, where can I find that again? And, can I find that again? So Leonard Wheeler was awesome because he's obviously he's handled this before, so he was like a great, like, he was always calling me with options or people to talk to, or, and I remember one time nothing was, I couldn't really figure out anything. And my mom came back, she heard this NPR, NPR episode, and they were talking about ranching and this goat farm or something. And she was like, it reminded her of me for some reason. And she brought it up, and said something like, well, you just told me about it. And I was like, that is so crazy. Like, me and my friends always joke about like how awesome it would be to live on a farm and to do that. But, they stopped joking, and I'm like, why aren't we still talking about this? So, that was like the first step in like oh, there's a possible life after this, like I could be into something. So scoured the web, found this ranch in Ohio, and just went down there, sent him an email. I'll never forget the email. I wanted to meet the owner. It's a 10,000 acre ranch, 3,000 cows. So I was like, if you're going to do it, let's do it big, So I sent him an email. Can I meet with him? This, that. He says, yes, come down tomorrow at, what do you say? Meet me at sunlight. Like, and I was like, when the hell is sunlight? What does that mean? Even, So I was down here. I pulled in at like 4 a.m. The stars were still out, and I was waiting on his front door. But Leonard Wheeler was great in that because when he found that out, he immediately started his own little network. And he was like, I have a friend, Lynn, I forget her last name, but she had a ranch, like an old ranch. Her family's been doing it forever. So he got me on the phone with her, and we started talking. And she seemed kind of like surprised that it was something I wanted to do. And she didn't think I was up for it, I guess, really, when it came down to it. So she was kind of questioning if like I had like that lifestyle in me. So she said to me, you know what, find one near you, get a pair of boots, and go to work. And then that was how the whole ranching thing started off, and like really kicked it off. So he's a huge part of my pivot, because like from then on, it kind of introduced me to slowly and surely like realizing little things that like, hey, I could do this lifestyle. I could, this is who I could be. So it was a big deal for me.
I love that. And Cynthia, I just want to, because this, even before I said to you, when your husband pivots out of the league and you see the emotions that he takes, and this is, why we wanted to start this when I approached you and wanted to talk to you, because I don't think, what do I call myself, the lay person, which we said we were going to find a different name for it, but someone that's not in the league. I really got fascinated with the emotions from the player to the family. And I don't think enough people think of that. Oh, you see this person out there, they're a professional athlete. Oh, woe is me, they leave the league. But we need to think about the emotions, the mental health. What does that do? And as Michael played football his entire life, right? Your husband played his entire life. And then when they had to leave the league, it takes a very special person to be able to say, okay, I want to help in this way, where I need to get the mindset where I can help my spouse, I can help my son navigate this. And as a wife versus a mother, what was the difference there?
Well, at this point, when Michael went through it, and I had shared this before, he was angry, and
right.
and we already talked about that. And so I was more, just trying to keep the kids, we were all trying to keep him going and stay positive. And I already knew from doing my book that this was going to be a transition, that it was not going to be him forever, and that once he got to the other side, he would be fine. So for Michael V, it was like a group effort between my husband and my son, Alex, and myself. And Aiden at the point was in LA, so she wasn't around for it. So we were more like a team. And we were very aware that it was wild, that what he was going through. And we were kind of like, we would come in. It was like a museum of craziness. It was like he was taking apart things that were broken at the house and creating new things out of it. Like when you think about that, it's kind of weird, but he made all these objects, like these wild objects, like these, like, where's my emergency ladder if there's a fire? Oh, it's this bar stool that Michael made that is really awesome. That I love it. Like I want more of them. And then it's like, where's the car jack? Oh, do you see the bookshelf over there? And it kind of jacks up and you've got these books stacked.
That's so cool.
My son Alex was like, is that my helmet? And the helmet was now a light fixture in the garage. And he was in the garage like this mad scientist person, taking stuff and making new stuff out of it. And I always looked at that like, that's pretty cool. Like that's his way. Like my husband learned to play the piano. He focused on learning to play the piano. Michael started building things with his hands. Even that, is that an electric chair, Michael, or a throne? In the garage. We never could figure that one out.
We don't know what it is. Yeah. It's there though.
It's there. So we were like, very aware and very respectful of what was going on in his head. But also I hope we were supportive. I hope that we were just like, give him that time to get to the other side. And, knowing that he would get there, just like, because knowing him since he was a kid, that he would get there. It's tough though when you see your kids struggling, and it's tough, when you know that they're hurting. But I really do think that I just knew he would be fine. And I really respected too my husband and my son Alex. Alex already knew from playing college ball that he wanted to do something else right away. He was already doing wine. So it was like for him really emotional. This is his big brother.
Right.
What is, he didn't want him to hurt at all, ever. And he's still like that. So seeing Michael go through that, and then going to the ranch, and he probably won't tell you this, but like he lived in a camper. He went to work on the ranch. He lived out practically in the wilderness. He worked at a processing plant, I think probably freezing in the winter some of the times. He worked at a butcher's shop. He, just kept growing around in the ranch, like, and just doing all these amazing things. So it was really exciting for us. Michael, tell the story about the day you had to like spin away from that.
I was just actually I was just literally looking down at my note because I was like, wait, that's something that I wanted to ask. So I love that you just did that.
That had to be really like worlds colliding.
Yeah, it was. There was like a 2,500 pound bull in the head chute, and that's where you you give it its shots and take care of it, check up on it. But I was standing in front of it, and the owner wasn't paying attention. He opened the front of it, and I was like 5 yards away from this huge bull, and it just started charging after me. So I had to like run and dodge it, and I'd have thought that I would be scared after it, but then I was kind of like, that felt kind of good. Like it had, those
Right. The
juices
adrenaline.
flowing again. I just remember it was a funny memory. I was telling them all about as soon as it happened, just because it felt like something I used to do in a way.
Right.
So it was cool. But even to go back on what you said about like what you could do as a family, like being aware, that's like such a great word, because that's really all you could do. Like there's it's on the person,
Right.
you have to be supportive and be aware and like see that they're going through, but nobody's gonna get through that but you, in a way, and it was really cool because they let me go in a sense, and they like accepted the lunatic that I was at the time, so it was very cool to come out of that, and everybody's still around, and there's no questions asked. It, kind of shows you how your family, how much that support matters. That's all that you need from them, is like the support. You can't force anybody into anything. You can't change anybody. You just have to be aware of who they are, where they're at, and just support what the hell they're doing. And I had a lot of that, which was very special to me.
I mean, so special. So I do want to ask the question, like, if you could give, two bit of advice to players that are just entering the league or have an injury. We have some people listening and people that are going to listen that are going to go through this. What would you say are your, top two things for them?
Well, you have to stay true to who you are, but the only way to do that is to accept where you're at,
Oh, I love that.
So it's kind of like that was the hardest thing for me. I remember I went to, like, my mom set me up, speaking about being aware and being supportive, but not being able to do anything. I mean, she set up so many things, like, you could do this, you could go to this, she set up this Bridge to Success program, or, go to the hotel and get lessons from all these awesome people on what you can do and how to do it and where you can go, and what, if you need us, call us. And I went to it, and I like barely went to it because I didn't want to accept that I was there. Like, it was just like, I'm not here. I don't need to be here. What am I doing? So I didn't like, it was kind of like I locked myself in the hotel room and go have lunch with the guys. And I mean, the whole thing was awesome. I just didn't use it properly because I didn't want to be honest with myself and say that you're done, So you kind of have to, accept that that's who you are, but it doesn't change anything either. It's kind of like, it's a piece of you that, it happened and it made you who you are today. But, you're never going to get to do it again, but you got to like stick to those memories and your friends and everything that happened. Cause it's we were talking about my dad and his struggles. I mean, he played 12 years. And then here I am. I like to say that I sniffed the NFL. I played, I went through one camp, one season on IR, and then a half a season on practice squad. I almost hate saying that I was there, like that I played in the NFL, but either way, like I always like to think this, like, nobody leaves that league happy. Like, nobody ever wants to stop playing,
Right.
So you're gonna, like, there's gonna be that battle once it's done on like how to handle it. So I really think that, acceptance is a big deal, but that doesn't mean that you like have to give up on yourself. It just means that, like, this is where you are. This is who you are now. And then I guess the other thing would be, like, don't be afraid to like sacrifice pay for passion, like, go try things, like go do something new, like experience, like get your blood flowing. That was a big thing for me, because I went from, a solid paycheck, even as a undrafted free agent, on with a cut in pay because of my injury. That's still a hefty paycheck every week, to working on a ranch as a ranch hand at $8 an hour, living out of a camper, and I really didn't have any money. But that also almost strips you down, and like, get to like really introduces you to you. And I think that was a big deal for me, just trying things, checking off the list. If you don't like it, don't do it again, but then go try something else. And like I said before, like, that really kind of like narrowed things down for me. This is what I like. This is what I absolutely hate. This is probably what I want to do. Or,
Yeah.
the thing is like, you could find a new passion, you could be a new person, but you're always going to want to play the game. Like I still wake up and still want to like be playing the game. I still like have dreams about, the phone ringing and I get picked up and I'm on a team again. I don't think that that is ever going to leave you, but that's not a bad thing. That's like, it's actually like a really good thing. Cause you know that feeling, you've been there before. So, it doesn't make you a failure. It just, it was a part of your life that doesn't exist anymore, but it's still a part of who you are. So I just, I think a lot of people go through the self-doubt and the misery, and it's really easy to question yourself and get down on yourself, and you're gonna have to do that. It's the only way to like get out of it or like heal from it is to do all of that stuff. That maybe that's the third point is like don't be afraid to like don't be afraid if you're down in the dumps. That's totally normal. Like you're allowed to feel that. It's
Right.
feelings are feelings. There's nothing wrong with them. So you can go to those places. Just be aware of it.
I love that. And you know what? I think it's one thing that you touched on. Oh, I just hit my microphone. Sorry if that just hit anyone's ears. One of the things that you said, and I think it's so important because I teach my kids this all the time. It's okay to know what you don't like, you don't know what you're supposed to do, right? My son's in high school now and he's like, Mom, they say like, I need to pick a track and what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm like, no. It's better to know what you don't want to do. And sometimes when you figure out those things that you don't want to do, it leads you to the thing that you're meant to do. But you're young. We're young. We don't know. So I love that you touched on that and saying that to the people that are going to be in the league, getting out of the league, injured in the league. That try everything because you're going to find out what you don't like and what you don't want to do, and that's going to lead you to the thing that you're meant to do and that you want to do.
Absolutely. I think it's okay to try new stuff, and it's okay to realize that you don't like it. It's like it's totally normal. That it's an experience. I draw a lot of my I would say knowledge or lessons from experience. It's just how I am. And I think that the only way I'm going to know wholeheartedly about something is if I do it, or if I've done it, or if I've experienced it. And again, pain is a great experience to have. It's like a good thing. You just it's all about how you approach it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're allowed, again, accept it, be hurt about it. I think that is one thing that we as guys really suck at. We just always want to be the tough guy, or just act like it didn't happen, or not. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't, whatever. But that only makes it worse down the road.
Right. Cause you're stuffing it. And that's my big thing.
And
Don't stuff it because it's going to come out somewhere.
Absolutely. And then there's this aha moment when you're just honest about it, where you're you go through a lot of little lies in your head when you try to hide something, and you just act like everything's good. And you're playing a part, and you're not yourself. It's like you're just putting on a face for the public instead of being yourself. And I think that that's because you're just of all those little lies and all that acting, but then you get to this point where you just say where you're at, who you are, and that honesty is so much easier. And then you're just wow, that's it. It's that easy. You know what I mean? There's no, I don't have to follow up on that or come up, and I think that that's a big thing is just being honest about, where you're at, who you are, and, you're figuring things out. It's not an easy thing to do. The thing for me was realizing that I wasn't the only one to ever do it. There's been a lot of guys that have gone through it too. And I think that in my case, I'd like it to at least get out to, all those other guys that were just free agents or got cut in the first week of camp and then never got to play again, because they still had that 18, 20 years of dreaming just like everybody else, So leaving the game after 12 years, yes, absolutely hard. Leaving the game that, after a week is just as hard. There's a lot of guys like me in that sense that, I feel we especially go through that, that stormy weather where we question whether, we were good enough, or could we have done it? And it's not that, it's just shit happens, and you just it's more so moving on with your dream, but not killing yourself over it.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful, Michael. And again, I love this so much. I would love for you to tell people where they can find you and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I'm still on the ranch in Cadiz, Ohio, but I've partnered with the owner now and opened up my own meat processing plant. It's called Fancy Meats, fancy-meats.com. And we're just kind of getting off the ground, getting going. I'm really excited about it. I think it has a lot of potential, but it's just, it kind of all came full circle, and now, making my way to it. And even now, like what I want to do is be a landowner on a ranch and run a ranch. But in order to do that, I need to have a ranch. And this is kind of a step. So here I am locked away in like a little meat processing plant, working inside every day, which, that's not my passion, but it's something that will get me to that passion. So that still goes on. I think, like, throughout your entire life, you got to like sacrifice a little bit of something to get what you want. And then,
Yes.
but you're just keeping like that confidence, and, just that understanding of yourself is a big deal.
I love that. Cynthia, you don't have your headphones in, but did you want to add something?
Oh yeah, I was running low on battery.
Oh yeah, no worries. There you are. I didn't know if we could hear you. Yep, perfect.
No, it's fine. It's like for us as a family, uh, Ohio Land and Cattle and Michael being on the ranch, going out to visit him, watching him navigate the land. Like, it's crazy how it seems like so natural. And for us to see him do something that brings him so much joy, that he's just a natural with the animals. It's like he's a natural, just even in the processing. We've witnessed every step of it, and he's done pretty much everything on the ranch. And then, it's like, yeah, it's like all you want is for anybody that has to let go of something that they love to find something else that they love, another passion. There's so many things out there. And I love that idea of just, working to find it and understanding that in that journey, it doesn't mean that you fail if you don't like things that you're doing. It just means that wasn't for you. And Russell Shepard said that in an interview that we did with him, where he was like, he had to stop looking at things like he was failing, but just that those weren't the things for him. And now he has his own like big waste management company. And I think that's important for these players to know and families to know that it is, it might take a little bit of time, but boy, when you get there and you can just be content, just that's all the whole family wants. That's why I get so excited. And that's why I was glad that Michael could come on today to share that, because there are a lot of kids that are going to go through the transition, whether it's this year or next year. So
Yeah. And I think it's so beautifully said that you said that. And I also want to say all the stuff that you're learning how to, humanely raise these cattle and feed them correctly and do the right thing to make the best meats. And that is something for me. It's important for me to say that, because I know there's people that, are vegans or pescatarians that don't eat meat and don't understand it. And the fact that you're learning the craft of how you can best support the animals and raise them and have a relationship with them and do all that, I think is really cool. And I remember your mom saying that to me, and I was like, that's so special that, where your journey has led you and all the different things. And of course, I love that your mom was like, hey, listen, I'd listen to this NPR, because I do this to my kids all the time. And half the time I don't think they're listening. I mean, they're still young. So I'm hoping that one day that I'll have them on stage, or they'll say something like, Mom, yeah, it was you that gave me the idea. Because that is one thing that is so special as a parent, to know that you are there supporting your kids. And as your mom said, sometimes you just need to be support there, and so they know that you're there, but you can't change the trajectory of what their life is meant to be. And so the fact that you guys have this special relationship, you can feel it. I mean, you can feel all the excitement and this is what I love to talk about, in all of the things that you talked about. You can hear where you're excited, and you can hear, where you're going is just a special place. So I just want to thank you so much, for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread Pivot, because it is going to help so many people to listen to your story. And stories connect us, as I said earlier, they connect us, but they also allow us to learn and grow. And your story is going to help others. I mean, I know Erica's in the audience right now, and she took a lot out of this. And Eric, I'm sorry if I'm putting words into your mouth, but her son just got into the league. So it's like, okay, I'm aware, I know what to kind of expect. And we can't prepare ourselves for everything, but the knowledge, when you have knowledge, it really can take you far. So again, I appreciate it so much for you taking the time. Yep. Go ahead, Cynthia.
before you stop, I do want to definitely mention that even though Michael went into the bridge to success with one foot in, it is an amazing program, and it did lead to all the conversations with Leonard Wheeler. So I want to say that if anybody is, going through transition, or has somebody that they love that is going through transition right now, the program's name has changed. It's now Life Beyond the Game. But Keith Elias does a wonderful job heading up that program. So you can either go onto your player portal at players.nfl.com to find it. It's coming this October. Or you can actually email Keith directly at keith.elias. It's ELIAS at NFL.com. So if you know anybody that is in the middle of transition, or maybe they're out 10 years and you still feel like they would benefit from the program, what I loved about them is that they're like, no matter if it was, you sign a contract, you're in. You made it to the highest level. You are part of that 1%. And we're here to remind you of that and who you are as a group. And Michael, you shared with me that whereas you just didn't like people talking at you at that particular time in your life, the breakout sessions were really awesome for you to be with your peers to talk real.
Yeah, no, the whole program is awesome. I just didn't take advantage of it because I didn't want to accept that I was in it. But the breakout sessions were the part that I really walked away from. Like, that was awesome because you got in a room with a bunch of guys that, were going through the same thing you were, and you just talked with each other, ask one question and then let the room go where it goes. And I got so much out of that. It was just kind of refreshing to hear, guys talking about the same issues that I was having. Like, I go to a meeting and I just don't like being around the people I'm around because I don't like the way they're thinking, or there's like that lack of connection or understanding with your environment. It was cool to it was good to know that, like, I'm not insane and that these guys are going through this too, so that kind of like, what would you call that? Even just that community effect there mattered a lot to me.
That's awesome.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread Pivot. I am so honored that I've known you when you were a little bird, and I can still remember you with your jersey and your football, always running, always at top speed. And, Aiden and Alex as well. I mean, you guys do have such a special family and such, special place in my heart. And I love what your mom and I are creating and what we're doing. And I'm so happy to be reconnected. And as I said, I always talk about, you meet people in your life. Sometimes you don't see why that, that introduction or that relationship is there. Sometimes relationships are just relationships, but sometimes those relationships grow bigger and they allow you to do stuff that, your mom and I are doing. And so I'm just, again, honored for you to join. Everyone, thank you wherever you're listening. If you're listening on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, if you're here in Fireside, if you're listening to the replay, definitely reach out if you guys have more questions, because this is an important thing. Don't let someone just be alone that's going through this. Be there to support them. Let them know that there is support, because it is, if you really deeply think about that, pivoting out of the league is, whether it's NFL, any sort of high level something, it is going to do something to your brain. It doesn't matter how stable you are. You're going to go through something. So the fact that there's support is really important to talk about. So Cynthia, thank you as always. And Michael, thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was awesome. And good luck with everything with this. It's going to a good place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little music on. Oh, wow, that's really slow. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, it's like a little piano there. Well, usually it's a little bit more upbeat, but again, thank you for everyone that joined, and we will see you guys for another amazing show, whether it's YNS Live with NFL Pivot or whether it's YNS Live with NFL Thread. You will catch Cynthia and I here